Pause for a moment, wherever you are, wherever you are. Stop. Listen. We're talking about timing and rhythm. And in this group situation where you're learning from each other and you've got a facilitator that's guiding your learning, there's other things that you need to pay, there's many things that you're paying attention to. And I'm not asking you to notice everything all the time, but when you hear someone talking on the microwave, the microphone, that you begin to listen. Now, how do I know if you're listening? I know if you're listening if the speed changes of your actions slightly, or if the volume of your discussion changes. There is a sense that you're being more inclusive of your attention. So I'm not wanting you to forget yourself or forget the people in your group, but I am asking you, requesting. So then if it's a request, you can do or not do, that when you're being given instructions, that you endeavour to listen. And if someone's talking to you so you can't listen, you could say, excuse me, just a moment, and then come back. And while I'm on a theme, it also is relevant to the beginning of the starting time of the class, the break time, the ending time, that slowly over time it becomes easier to be in rhythm with one another, to adjust yourself to someone else's rhythm. And it'd be great if you could consider that. So I adjust the day. I'll start the class at 9:30, but if only half the class is here, then it's a really difficult decision for me. I can put the onus on you. You go back to the recordings. You know, you can find out. You can ask other people. Or maybe you need to organise what time you leave home, your own timing, to consider the learning of the group, the learning of yourself. And of course, there are unexpected circumstances. Trains can be late. Things can happen. Unexpected circumstances. And we can appreciate all those things. But I have noticed, well, I've tried to see how the group self-forms. And I do notice that when I say 20 minutes or 15 minutes, that it doesn't appear like there's any attention to coming back at the end of that particular time. So let's see if we can all be more aware and take responsibility for that. So one of the instructions I gave was to give yourself some space between the person you're sitting opposite. So you'll need a 6. Oh, you don't want to what? Okay, you can observe, then absolutely fine. So what does a bit of space mean for you? You could check how comfortable you feel in the distance you've organised yourself from your partners. Now move your chairs further away. Are we going to be standing up together? Well, you don't know. So you may be that. In fact, it's very likely. Not necessarily together, but... So Barbara, did you have a question?
As somebody who used to run workshops, I found that when I told people 15 minutes, that it went on forever. And if I said at 10:15...
So I've tried both.
You tried both?
I have.
Neither works on us.
So could you organise your chairs? Oh no, we'll see if this works. Okay. So, we're going to explore a process of observation and with our eyes and observation with our sense of touch that relates to the lesson that Ruth just taught and that many of you also have taught in your, to somebody else as part of your learning activities between segments. So just observe each other sitting right now. What do you notice? So you, in particular, the person in front of you. So that's going to be, one person is going to observe and do, and the other person is going to change their organisation and be observed and be touched. So choose now who will be A and who will be B. And I'll give you the guidelines for what A and B are doing as we go along. But just communicate that to each other. So next question, could the A's sit on the same side? A's sit side by side, B's sit side by side. So reducing the degrees of chaos. So A, sit forward on your chair. And B, begin to notice how they're sitting. So you can notice their position of their feet on the floor relative to their chair. So what's the distance of their feet from their chair? What's the relationship of their feet to each other? What's the distance between their feet? What's the relationship between their feet and their knees? Are their knees above their feet or wider apart than their feet or closer together than their feet? B, feel free to shift your position. You can stand up if you want to observe something else. Just notice something about the shape of their spine. Position of their head relative to their pelvis. And then come and sit in front of them again for a moment. And A, could you come to standing and then sit back down again? And B, begin to observe different relationships as they do that. Do they change the distance between their feet? Does coming to stand influence the relationship of their knees to one another? So another way of saying that would be, what happens with their knees as they come to standing? Do they get a little closer together, a little further apart? Notice the movement of the relationship of their head and their pelvis. What shape do they make between their head and their pelvis as they come to stand? Any of the curves through the length of their spine increase? A, feel free to pause any time you like. then do its... You could pause between each exploration of coming to stand, or you might sit to stand several times and then pause for a moment. And B, could you notice the pathway of their head through space? The trajectory it makes. Is it a curved line? Is it a straight line? Does it have an angle somewhere that forms in the pathway? B, notice if the action of coming to stand looks like one continuous movement, one continuous speed, or does the speed change somewhere through the motion? Okay. Sit for a moment. Rest. B, could you bring your chair closer to your partner so that you could bring one hand or your other hand to one or other of their knees? So, not yet. So when you're guided in a process, you may want to be ahead of me. You may want to take longer than me. Fine. I didn't even, actually wasn't even observing you, Ray. Yes, so there's a timing. And it's a continually changing thing. So, A, sit forward on your chair. And B, check the distance, see can you comfortably reach their knee. And reach their knee in a way that you could contact somewhere around their knee with one or both of your hands. And do you have access to the other knee from where you are? Some do, some don't. So you remember when we were on the floor and we were finding a place where we felt more comfortable, we talked about having a belly button directed to where your hands were going. Now for some of you it may feel like you're a little close to the person, but that orientation gives you more access to the space in front of you than if you line up to be able to change the direction you're moving in. So B, bring one of your hands to contact one of your partner's knees. So you're listening, doing. So some bring their right hand to touch the left knee, some bring the left hand to touch the right knee. Try your other hand. Do you go to the same knee, or do you go to the opposite one? So bring your hands away. And of course, when you don't know what's going to happen or what you're going to explore, it can be more difficult to organize yourself in a way that affords what you're going to investigate. So the next time you're going to bring one of your hands, the hand that you feel more comfortable to sense with, to whichever of their legs that feels easy for you to access, in a way that you could bring a little bit of, start again, because if I say pressure, you'll begin to press. Your intention is to feel through your partner's leg, lower leg, to sense the ground, to sense the floor underneath their foot. And so try that. Just see how that is for you. Where do you place your hand? And how do you organize yourself to extend your attention through their leg to try and feel the floor underneath their foot? So maybe you've chosen one particular position of your hand. Maybe you could try another one. Okay. Now, same leg. B, you're going to explore same leg. Could you find a way to connect with your partner so that you might sense through their thigh to their pelvis? So you're feeling for their pelvis through their thigh. You could try that with their other leg. You can use one hand or both hands, absolutely. B, can you sense your own breathing? And is there anything about how you were sitting and moving yourself in the last lesson that could assist you in organizing yourself to contact your partner this way? Okay, rest a moment. Wherever you are, rest a moment. So in the ATM, you explored that rhythmical movement of your knees. B, your next intention is to bring your hand or your hands to one of their legs and see if you can create a small oscillation. So when you're ready, you can try that. So you can just observe the size of the oscillation. Doesn't need to be big. And what you sense. You may find it's a little different if you're connecting somehow with the bone of the leg, their skeleton. So we've got different ways of doing this that people are doing. So if you have a look, turn and look at the skeleton for a moment. Some people have got the hand above the knee, that's the kneecap, above the knee joint, and they're doing this. Others, one hand, and they're here, and they're moving themselves. Others have got two hands. All are okay, and maybe they are four different distinctions for you to make. Or maybe your partner might experience your oscillation differently. So try those different ways. So it's left and right that the oscillation is that you're exploring. How much pressure do you need to use in your hands to perceive a degree of movement in the leftward or rightward directions? So try the same idea with their other leg. So there are 3 different ways of connecting with them. Whichever leg you perceive as being easier to create an oscillation with, that little rhythmical movement, continue with that leg for a little while. And are you listening? A, you're going to begin to make some variations while your partner is oscillating your knee like this. Remember, if you need a rest, take one. Could you roll your pelvis backwards so that you're clearly sitting on the back of your sit bones? And B, see what it's like to oscillate their leg now with their torso and pelvis in this configuration. Now A, could you bring so you're staying with the same leg, but if you're interested and you have the space and the time and you've finished questioning the movement on the other leg, you can try it on both. So it's left and right, not forwards and backwards. Okay. A, could you roll far forwards so that your forwards of your sit bones are pointing backwards? Stay there. So it's likely now that your lower back will be arched. And B, notice, does this influence the oscillation from their knee through their leg in any way? A, could you now find the highest point of your sit bone, where your back is less strongly arched and you feel your weight clearly through your ischiums into the seat? B, see what it's like to oscillate now. A, if it's comfortable for you to stay here in relationship to your sit bones, please do so. But could you change the position of your feet so your feet come close to the chair and your heels are off the ground? B, explore the oscillation possibilities here. Now A, could you put your feet further away from the chair than usual? Forwards, so not, well, just forwards. B, explore the oscillation here. A, bring your feet underneath your knees so your lower leg is more vertical. And B, explore the movement left, right, of their knee in space, but maybe you're sensing a little movement in their hip joint, in their foot floor joint, or in the ankle joint. A, could you now bring your knees closer towards one another? B, explore how this influences the ability to oscillate their leg from their knee. When you brought your knees closer together, did your feet stay where they were? Okay, so now keep your knees closer together, but put your feet further apart. So your feet will be wider apart than your knees. And now put your knees wider apart than your feet. You'll feel your weight bearing a little, the weight's coming more down through the outside border of your foot. Okay. B, move your chair away from A. A, sit comfortably forwards on your chair. And begin to explore coming to stand and sitting back down again. And B, just notice how they're organizing that now. So remember, we looked at the movement of the knees as they come up to standing. The relationship of the head and the pelvis, shape of their back, their spine, and the trajectory of their head through space. Okay, pause, and A and B, just take a few moments to discuss your experience of that with each other. There's something that you noticed in particular or that interested you?